Welcome. You're listening to Entertain You. We are a radio program in partnership with the Sarasota County Film and Entertainment Office, Society Bites Radio Network, and Radio Ear Network that goes global. Thanks for listening. I'm Jeannie Corcoran, your friendly Sarasota County Film Commissioner, and it's my privilege and my pleasure to bring you interesting people from the entertainment industry, many, many walks of the entertainment industry, from the technical side behind the camera to the talent side in front of the camera to the writers that write it, to the audience that loves it, to the critics that talk about it, and everybody in between. We just love the entertainment world, and our entertainment university, Entertain You, is all about letting you learn something you probably didn't know before you listened. So today I have with me a gentleman who has done far too much for me to give you a list right now, Danny KENTON. And Danny, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You're most welcome. And Danny, you have been in front of the camera, you've been behind the camera, you've written, directed, produced, probably you've done just about everything in your lifetime. What do you like the best that you've done? And then the second part of that question is, what have you done the most of? And are those two the same or different?
That's a good question. I did a wide variety of work. Basically, I was a cameraman for over 40 years in New York City, and I did a bunch of variety of documentaries, commercials, behind the scenes of movies. I did a lot of TV shows. I worked with Barbara Walters for 7 or 8 years doing her special shows. Worked with Martha Stewart for many years on her work as well. And a lot of commercials. Commercial work was pretty lucrative back in the day, back in New York City.
Sure.
But I think documentaries were really my favorite work that I did. I did exclusive documentaries in Indonesia, seeing Bali and Jakarta and all that sort of, mostly about their religion and background there. Cultures and things like that. And I did documentaries. I worked with Lee Grant for many years, and we worked on different documentaries together, gun control and a bunch of different things like that. Barbara Walters actually hired me to do a documentary with her about adoption because she had an adopted child.
Oh, I never knew that about Barbara Walters.
Yeah, she did. And we interviewed Rosie O'Donnell and other people that had adopted people, and she made a show out of that. I did a great documentary in Russia. It was sent by the United States, actually the PBS station in New York City. There's a music competition every year in Russia, or every 4 years, the Tchaikovsky music competition, where the best pianists and the best violinists from around the world go, and they compete, basically, in this competition. And it was just a wonderful experience. It was not the best time for Russia, actually. Yeah. It was sort of the war, people were just starting to protest, and it was a very shaky sort of situation. We had people that were with us as interpreters who were obviously KGB, so they sort of monitored where we were going and what we were doing. They interpreted
what you were doing,
Exactly, very carefully. And it's funny because a lot of times you do a documentary and you go in one direction, and then while you interview people and things change and your storyline changes. So you have to be able to adapt to that. Because we were going there basically to see our top American and the top Russian. We wanted to get them together. We wanted to see how the cultures crossed. They were both pianists, and nobody knew who was going to win, obviously. And it turns out we found this whole scandal that judges were being paid off by certain members, certain families of musicians to get a better position in the judging. So everything has shifted midway, and we went sort of try to focus on that and do the competition at the same time.
Well, ended up being sort of a semi-expose.
It really was. It really was, yeah.
And they didn't object or drive you out or make you stop?
No, they didn't really. And again, we shot so much, and we were constantly shooting. Of course, at the time, it was in the summertime in Moscow, so the sun sort of got gray around 11 p.m., and it came up again around 4 a.m., so it was like a long day. And as a producer, you don't know what's going on. As shooting, I was one of the camera. You just keep shooting, and, it's sun out. Let's go here. Let's grab this. There was so much footage, and the way they edited it afterwards is what really, puts these shows together. So.
Right. You end up with hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, and then you edit it down to 47 minutes or something for a 1 hour special.
Exactly.
And commercials.
Mm-hmm. I think those are the documentaries that I did with Lee Grant. Lee and I had a show called From Lifetime about women And
probably where the channel got its name. No, could be, right?
Could be. Anyway, we interviewed all sorts of people from Farrah Fawcett to Elizabeth Taylor to all sorts of different celebrities.
Wow, I wonder where that is now. Where is that footage now?
You know, it's out there. The show was called Intimate Portraits,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very popular. It's probably out there if you YouTube.
Probably YouTube it, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can find on YouTube. I have found things from when I was a kid, and I remembered a cartoon show that I used to love called Beanie and Cecil, and it was a dragon or a sea serpent and a little boy with a beanie on his head. And I was telling my son about it when he was little, and he said, "I want to see it." And I went on YouTube, and there it was. Beanie and Cecil.
Scary.
It is scary. And it also means whatever you put out there, it will probably stay there forever. So be careful what you put online, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, documentaries probably are your first love of what you did.
Right.
What would you say was your least love of what you did? I mean, did you find news or live television or live to tape or
Well, I didn't do too much.
Or?
I didn't do too much news stuff. I mean, I did. Early on, I did some stuff for Dateline, NBC, and that didn't last long because they were really the shows that they were doing. It's not what I was in the business to do.
Right.
You know, what I did that I didn't really totally enjoy for the most part was commercials, but they were very lucrative money-wise.
Right, and
So
usually a fast turnaround too.
Very fast.
Right.
You know, you can do a commercial on 2 or 3 days of a week, and then a feature could be 14, 16 weeks out of your life and away from the family, which I never wanted to do.
Sure.
Documentaries, I sort of limited myself to 2 weeks away from home, and that was more than enough.
Right.
And commercials weren't that much fun.
But they were a lot of money. I remember back here in Sarasota when I was in high school, we had a commercial come in. There were a series of commercials for This Is Not Your Father's Oldsmobile. And I belonged to FMPTA, Florida Motion Picture and Television Association, way back then, even though I was a kid. And I would go in and be a PA, basically. So I got to work on that. And I am telling you, they kept sending me to the bank to pick up the money drafts that were coming in from L.A. And I would go every day, and it would be, $40,000, $100,000, $75,000.
Sure.
And they had 22 actresses, and they had a gentleman named Joe who was 78, and his dad who was Pops, and he was 99. And it was all about This Is Not Your Father's Oldsmobile.
Wow,
But I saw them in a matter of probably 5 to 7 days spend $500,000
Oh, yeah.
in cash. Wow. Crazy. The caterers, the catering trucks, they would roll in and put down the side of the truck, and it would be a hot breakfast, hot lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And if it went long, it would be a hot dinner with all the trimmings.
Absolutely.
I was kind of agog as a 17-year-old. I thought, wow, this is actually pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. Well, those are
But
some of those.
it was tedious too. Those were long days.
They can be very long days. And again, the agencies work on these commercials for a long time, and they come up with these storyboards, and a lot of times that was your job to get those 8 or 10 pictures that you needed for that commercial. And after a while, it was like, okay, what's next? I like to work with some directors that would just come in and combine shots together. Or say, we don't want to do this, we'll put these 2 shots together. And it would drive the agency nuts because they say, well, you bid on the job and you said you'd do it for this price with these pictures. And they would say, okay, I'm going to make it better. And 9 times out of 10 they did.
Right.
But it was that agency getting over that hump to say, this is our work thrown away.
Right.
In a
We have spent so much time.
Minutes.
Right.
Months they spent to get these things perfect.
And imagine how many people they had approve those storyboards,
Exactly.
frame by frame by frame,
Exactly.
shot by shot by shot.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And you have now. Did you get involved with indie film at all? Because I know cinematographers that get involved with indie film end up doing a whole lot more than just being behind the camera shooting the footage. And sometimes they're fixing problems, and sometimes they're giving advice about, I don't think that shot's going to work that way.
Yes. You're hired mostly for your experience, and you have experience at all different levels. So I've done a couple of indie films and helped with the direction and helped with the coverage. A lot of times the director will go in and say, that was a great shot, that was a great scene, that was great dialogue. And I said, yeah, but you have to cover it enough if you want to cut out of it. And you have to have different coverages to do that sort of thing, different eye line. There's a whole bunch of things that you can get into. Hopefully I'm brought in beforehand to make sure that we're in the right location that you can work in that location, and the wardrobe doesn't offset what the background is.
Right.
There's all sorts of things that get involved. And even as a cameraman, when I used to have to scout locations, I would scout locations for the sound man as well. So you go into a room that might be a great room, but if you can't control the air conditioning and turn it off, or the heat,
right.
like a radiator in New York City clanking, that's going to kill your production day as well.
For sure. Absolutely, for sure. And there's a phrase that when I was doing writing and producing and creative directing and doing everything on low-budget projects and commercials and things like that, I was never on big-budget stuff, but I worked on 300 projects of my own for my own clients through an agency. And the one thing I just couldn't bear to hear someone say was, we'll fix it in post. How about shooting it right to begin with?
Yeah, well,
how about letting the DP or letting the cameraman or letting them tell you what you just said? Mm-hmm. Let's get some cover shots. Let's do a little. Hey, I think you need a little more than what you've got. And
yeah, there's a T-shirt out there that says, "If you don't succeed, try doing what your cameraman told you to do the first time."
That's great. I should have had that on all my crew because
right.
too many of them didn't listen. Right.
Absolutely.
So what are you doing now? I understand you are sharing your world of wisdom as a teacher.
Well, yeah, I've been giving back for a while. When I was still working in New York, I taught at the School of Visual Arts maybe about 3 years, and then I came down here in Florida, and I was teaching online for Full Sail University, film and filmmaking and things like that. Mm-hmm. And now I'm sort of laid back and I'm doing classes with the Sarasota Film Society.
Right.
And we're doing adult film classes there at one of their theaters, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing different panels. I'm doing 6 panels, basically script to screen, screenwriting and editing and production work and producing and budgeting. And
yes, everybody out there listening, as when we started this, as I said, Danny has done it all, and now he's teaching it all. Mm-hmm. So even though you were an amazing cameraman and you worked on incredible stuff, you really learned all the aspects.
Well, you had to.
You
really had to. And I ended up at times producing. I produced and directed a bunch of little films and videos and things like that as well. I had that end of my career. Again, not totally. It was more fun than going around. It was educational videos that I did.
Sure.
I saw the producer a couple of years ago, and he said, well, we did over 300 shows. I said, I can't believe it. It was just kind of nonstop. We were in New York. We'd fly down actually to the studio in Tampa. Mm-hmm. We'd shoot 5 or 6 shows in Tampa, and we'd go back and forth over a period of time.
Wow.
So it was fun. Because I came from a film background, and then I had to move into a digital tape background. So obviously that technology changed over the years.
Right, yes. I remember way back when I was a teen and I would work as a PA and everything was shot on film, and then they had what they called video assist. Mm-hmm. And right below the film camera, they had a guy or a woman or whoever it happened to be running a video camera, getting the same shots, making sure that they got the same angles and so forth, because they could look at video assist immediately, whereas with the film camera, they had to fly out the dailies to California to get them developed. As soon as they were done shooting for the day, man, it went out, the runner took it, went up to Tampa, put it on a plane, sent it to L.A., and then as soon as it came back in, the runner's up there picking it up, bringing it back, setting it up, and they would screen them sometimes that night. Yeah. And it was a crazy, crazy schedule.
Absolutely. And that technique, actually, with the video camera side by side with the camera, was started by Jerry Lewis.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. He was brilliant.
He directed stuff, and that's the first time. Because when I started in the film business, we were kings. We were the only one that could see through the lens.
Right.
The director might look at the beginning of the shot or the end of the shot, and then, so we were the ones that only saw the footage at all. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully we sent it to the lab, and hopefully everything was okay. But then when they got these little video taps into our viewfinders, so on set you could see this black and white.
They could watch the monitor, right?
And then that went to a color monitor, which was absolutely horrible.
I remember all the big black wings that you would put around it so that you could see it in the daylight, because it just wasn't that high quality.
Absolutely. And now, basically